And head on over to supertalktv.com. You'll see I'm not alone in the studio today. Joining me is a speech pathologist, Corinne Hegwood. She is out of Cleveland, Mississippi, and she knows that reading is good for kids. And so she has co-founded Reading in the Park with her husband, as well as many core community members there out of Cleveland. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I know you were having post-traumatic from another interview that didn't have the right sound, so I'm going to ask, is it okay with your headphones, or do we need to change them?
It's just right.
It's just right. Okay. I was like, we can roll here on good things and make sure that you are definitely comfortable, because no PTSD from being here. No, but I got wind of this story. A friend of ours of Good Things, Trisha Walker there, who is in Cleveland. Everyone knows that name, singer-songwriter. She shared a article about the good that you were doing in the parks there with reading. And I thought, man, what a neat idea to utilize a community space for something that kids should be doing during the summertime, which is reading. So let's just get started with that. How did Reading in the Park come about for you guys there in Cleveland?
Well, this has been going on for quite some time. It's 2022, and we can put an astronaut in space for an entire year. And we've come so far in science and technology that we can even calculate, with his body weight, how many calories he should have each day, and pack all of that for a year. But the most recent data from Department of Education shows that almost 70% of kids starting kindergarten were not ready. And I have seen over and over and over and over and over what happens when they're not ready. And, when they come to kindergarten, they should be able to know some colors and maybe some sight words, maybe some letters. And when they don't have that foundation, then when the teacher starts trying to teach them to read and says, what's the first sound you hear in cat? Well, what does first mean? What does sound mean? And so they get behind, and then it's really, really difficult to catch up. When I lived in Chattanooga, I worked in a Title I school there with a primarily Hispanic population. When we lived in Suwanee, I worked in Grundy County, Title I school, rural Appalachia. And in the Delta now, all black school, Title I. And what I found is that race does not matter. The common thread is that, less than 25% of kids are reading on grade level. I mean, when you stop and think about it, this is not a new problem. It's been going on for quite some time. But why can't we get it together? 0 to 5 is the most important time. That window, for their brain development, if we can get them in between 0 and 5,
you can catch it early, then you can prevent a whole lot of having to work with them later. As a speech pathologist, I mean, you get this a little bit more than the rest of us in terms of, parents, we should be really keen on getting them prepared for kindergarten or what do they need before they go in. And some have more resources and access to that kind of pre-K education than others, for sure. But from your profession, as a speech pathologist, if you miss the mark before 5 years old, right? Like if you're not getting just that sort of quality interaction with adults that talk to you, or have the ability to have someone to start teaching words and sounds and all of that to you, which we take for granted if our kids are just in a system that does it already. How hard is it to catch back up?
Oh, it's so difficult. And the thing is that we pour money into what I call plugging the dam. I mean, we have a literacy coach here, you have an interventionist here, and you're just patching it. And, it's going to continue to fall because they're not getting that strong foundation. And I can tell you what happens to them. As I'm walking around the school, I see the same kids always sitting in the principal's office. And when you go in and try to, get down to the bottom of it, oh my gosh, they're in 4th grade. And the teacher's asking them to answer questions about a paragraph, in history. Well, if you're spending all of your time sounding out the words, then you forgot what you read and you can't answer the questions.
And then you get angry because you're embarrassed, and it's the whole thing.
Exactly. Confidence, they don't want to come to school. It's no fun.
So oftentimes I think we oversimplify that it's just a behavioral issue, when if you get to the root of it, and some of it is, some kids are just going to wind up in the principal's office. You're not going to stop everyone from, all kids from not acting out, but a large majority of it could be that it's a defense mechanism.
Absolutely.
Out of feeling insecure, scared, not ready, stupid, whatever words they feel like in their head. And so if you can lay that solid foundation early, then they could thrive instead of get on the teacher's nerves.
Right. And reading at the park, we just, we want to be able to put books in kids' hands, not because they have to take a test on it, but because they want to be excited about picking up a book and it being their book. If you don't have books in your home, we know what the research says. And kids who live in underserved areas, there's a word gap. They hear 30 million words fewer than more advantaged peers. So if there's the word gap and then you don't have books in your home, so you don't ever see print. And pre-K, we don't have universal pre-K. In Cleveland, we have, in the public school, we have about 3 pre-Ks right now, so every kid can't go. And
then enough room, yeah.
Yeah. So, early childhood is the key, and how we connect with parents and teachers is going to be, in my mind, the only solution to
bridging the gap and sort of, as you mentioned, plugging up those holes so that are from the beginning, maybe not allowing the holes to get there in the first place. Mm-hmm. But that's one thing. There's obviously your passion there, Corinne, and and there's others in the Cleveland community that's come together. You've co-founded this with several core partners to make the reading in the park possible. You've even branched past just reading and trying to meet some other needs of the families there in the community. But why the park? How did that come up? Of all the places, you got libraries. Not being, but how did the park become the central place?
Well, the library, we wanted to go there, and they are fantastic in Bolivar County. But because of COVID, we couldn't. And so Kier Rimmer, who's one of our partners, he has a nonprofit called Fly Zone. He's a mentor in the Black community. And he said, let's go to the park. Let's do it. Reading at the park. Call it RAP. Perfect. And that way kids are outside. It's just, they can swing, they can play. Look, you got 2 communities that are coming together for a pure purpose, and they wouldn't normally be together. And you got kids that are excited about books. We had the diaper bank from Clarksdale come in hopes to get mothers with young children there, and that was awesome.
Do you find sometimes that maybe the reason the kids are having trouble learning to read at home is because the parents have trouble reading?
Oh, for sure. If that's the history. I think about, my mom was a kindergarten teacher. And so she read to me, she talked to me. And so I learned that. So I'm going to pass that on to my children. But if I didn't have that, how would I know? But even for parents, it's finding a book that's developmentally appropriate for, let's say, a 1-year-old. When you tell a parent to read to their kid, what does that mean? What does that look like? Do I pick any book, And so it's being able to put that book where spot in their hand and saying, look, with this one, they're just going to be learning yes and no questions. They're going to be learning all the animals and animal sounds. Because it truly is simple, and we make it so complex. But just talking with parents and meeting them where they are and trying to have a relationship.
When was your first Reading in the Park event?
Our first one was in November, and it was at Amzie Moore Park, and it was great. But here's the thing: for all the kids that we wanted to be in parks where kids could walk, because are you going to get in the car? Somebody going to drive you to the libraries? Gas is expensive. The libraries have closed in parts of Bolivar County, so it's like a book desert, and it's the kids that come. It's great, but how do we reach the kids who can't come?
Who can't come to the park. Well, we're going to dive into that and more with Corinne coming up next here on Good Things. And there's more going on, too, in the Delta as we can continue our conversation with Corinne Hegwood. We've got Middays with Gerard Gibbert and in a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar. They're going to be live on Friday in Greenville at the Delta Soul Celebrity Golf and Charity event. So you'll hear from celebrities throughout the day as they make their way to the Delta. And it all goes to benefit the Steve Azar St. Cecilia Foundation to raise funds for charitable organizations that aid sick, disadvantaged, and abused children. So go to Steve Azar St. Cecilia Foundation.org to learn more. Now we're learning more about reading at the park. I called it in the park, but I know that two little letters didn't mean that much difference because it's still up to good work there in Cleveland. Miss Corinne Hegwood. Okay, you're the co-founder. Who else came together to make these events that foster the love of reading or the ability to read there in Cleveland in the parks?
Well, so my husband, Les, he's an Episcopal priest, and he's got an education background, been in the schools, his whole career before going to seminary. And so then we met Margaret Katembe, who's a Delta State librarian, and both of our sons are in sixth grade together. And we just kind of got to talking one day, and she said, "Let's do it. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. Let's quit talking about it. Let's do it."
And that was back in November.
And that was back in, probably October, November. And then we met Kier because the librarian at our local library said, you got to reach out to him. And, when I asked him how he got into what he's doing, he said, a lot of friends, people that I know are being killed, gun violence. And if you look at it, what percent of those kids that have been killed have been in,
have low literacy or haven't had the proper education or had the opportunity, or a home that fosters the put education first in terms of something of importance. I think it's very interesting when you look at all the statistics, and I don't have them here, but you can almost a common thread through just about everything that we would love to see improved, not only in the state of Mississippi, but in America, leads back to literacy.
Yes.
And that foundation of education. When you know better, typically you sort of do better. And, and reading really is the key to, a lot of that. And not just being able to read headlines or read a tweet or read whatever. We're talking about reading and comprehension and fostering that kind of confidence in education. For education is the foundation.
Right.
Which, you feel like it's one of those topics where you feel like you're drinking out a water hose when you start to look at everything that could, or, would be fixed. So you just start somewhere. So you started with these events. How was the first one? Tell us about what that was like.
Amity Moore was great. We had a lot of, we probably had 30 kids come. We probably gave away, 500 books or so. We had a great one in Mound Bayou. That was probably in Sterling Anderson Park. We did that one a couple of weeks ago, and we had about 60 kids because we had diapers. So our next one is going to be in Mound Bayou on the 25th.
Of this month of June?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting the 500 books or more?
Where we get Barksdale Reading Institute has been great. They give us books at firstbook.org. And so, all the books we have are very thoughtfully picked out. We have a book list. We want the books to mirror the children that are reading them. When you open a book, you want to see somebody that looks like you. I can do that, And so that's really important.
There's been a lot of thought put into this program, Reading at the Park. It's not like it was just, hey, let's go read at the park, which is as simple as it is. It feels like you and the community members there in Cleveland have really sat down and been conscious about, how do we approach this where it can actually be impactful and meaningful? And did you feel that from the people who showed up?
Oh, yeah. And the people in Cleveland are like no other place. They're just good-hearted people. It's a true sense of community, and they want, we all win. If kids can go on and they can be fluent readers and they can graduate and they can, get out into society and give back and all of that. We all win, but we've got to do something. We've got to do something to
And part of your mission, too, Corinne, is getting more books into neighborhoods where maybe the kids aren't able to walk to the park or catch a ride to the park. You recently had a good donation of a golf cart. Where did that come from?
Actually, it was my dad. I called him. I said, listen, you need to give to this program. You need to give us a golf cart. And he said, okay. So it's got a basket on the back. It's a 96. And it's about to, we pick it up tomorrow, and we're about to get on the road, get a little basket, hand out books. But it's just, driving the golf cart and seeing kids in the street because there's nothing else going on. And just saying, hey, what do you want to read about? Maybe I'll bring that to you next week. To get them excited and curious about wanting to read.
How many books do you feel like you've given out over your last couple events? You mentioned 500 in the first one.
I'd say we've probably given out about 2,000 altogether. We've had a lot of donations, just people, we had somebody in the Highlands box up such a, great box of books and send them to us. Books that she picked out, books that were from our reading list, books that she just wanted to add. And it's kind of fun to see what people put together, and it's just been really thoughtful and
we always have generous Good Things listeners that always want to connect to some of the more positive stories. I feel like this may be one someone if they wanted to connect, sponsor books or get involved. I mean, is there a way to do that? I know you're always looking to grow that reach. So how would someone maybe help donate books? I mean, do you take only new or gently used, or how does that work?
We take both. We've got a book list, and our website is almost ready. It's about another week or so. You'll be able to get on at Calvary Episcopal on their website, and you can go, and it has the book list. You can donate for books, but our ultimate goal is to get the book truck, book it, so we can book it all over the Delta. That's our goal.
So not just Cleveland, you want to be able to spread reading at the park and book it all throughout the Delta and reach as many people as you can, and obviously create these also relationships, which I think is very important when you're talking about impacting and changing of culture. You have to create those relationships with families too. I mean, you don't just let anyone come to your house and start reading to your kids.
Right.
I mean, no, you shouldn't in that way. But I mean, is the community responding? Are they excited to see when you guys are posting about more events? Are you slowly getting more and more to everyone?
We've had a lot of people reach out, and not just from Cleveland, Clarksdale, Greenwood. I'm so sorry, I was out of town. I really want to come. And when they come, I had one man say, this is how it should be. It's everybody, you've got two sides together, coming together for just a common, pure purpose.
Always like to highlight here on Good Things where, not that you're just an ordinary citizen who had an extraordinary idea and took the idea and decided to step out. Could you imagine that you would be 2,000 books later when you first had the idea of reading at the park?
No.
And a golf cart from Dad?
That's right. And it's about to, we're about to be able to give out a lot more books. But the main thing is, just connecting with parents. Just talking to them, just having a conversation, and
understanding too, I feel like part of the beauty of today's conversation, Corinne, is just raising the awareness of the importance of reading, and that if you can make an impact in your own community, whether it's reading at school or when you have the opportunity to give or pay it forward, do it in the form of books. Like, don't take for granted that your kid may have someone who understands that. You can pay that forward by just being mindful. Absolutely. And helpful and sort of meaningful. Because sadly, there are kids all across Mississippi who could use a book, not just there, in the Delta, that it's sort of that way. Or if you've got kids or grandkids that are hanging out with you this summer, read a book.
Right. And the key is to find something that's on their level, something that's developmentally appropriate. But that's the great thing about reading at the park is anybody can come. It's, all are welcome. And you show up and you get a child and you find something that they want to read and you sit down and you read it. You read it with them, you read it to them, or maybe they read it to you. And it's pretty magical.
It is magic. It really is magical just what you can do with sitting down and opening up a book and just having them tell you the story from the pictures and what that can do in the moment it can have. Now, it can get annoying when you've read it like 1,500 times, but then you just start to skip the pages and you just start to tune out. But that's when you know you're doing it. You're sort of doing it right. And Corinne, I think you're definitely doing it right. You guys do have your Facebook page up. So where can people go to go ahead and start connecting and finding out more?
Through Facebook and Instagram, it's reading_at_the_park. And like I said, our website will be up and running in the next, hopefully, 2 weeks.
Well, when you get your truck and you book it across the Delta, you're welcome back to let us know about it.
Hey, will you come ride with me?
Yes.
That would be awesome.
I love that. All right, you guys stick with us. It's Tuesday, so we've got Tasty Tuesday coming up next.